Welcome to A Bit of Insight. I'm Lisa Mosbey, entrepreneur, author of Live Well, Travel Far, and a woman who believes it's never too late to build a life you don't need a vacation from. For more than 40 years, I've built businesses, reinvented myself, and explored the world. And here's what I've learned. Travel changes you. Wellness grounds you, and purpose pulls you forward. This show is about all three. We'll talk about meaningful travel, building income with freedom, staying healthy, and along the journey, having the courage to live fully in this season of our lives. If you're ready to live well, travel far, and inspire others, you're in the right place. Let's go. Hey there, do you need a reminder that freedom doesn't happen by accident? It's designed. Cami Sauder has been using points and miles since 1995, long before it was trendy. And for years, she worked behind the scenes helping people travel the US, the Caribbean, and Mexico, nearly for free. I'm Lisa Mosby, your host of A Bit of Insight, and today's conversation goes far beyond travel hacks. Cami and her husband made a deliberate decision in their 50s to design a life rich in experiences, not stuff. They created a plan to replace income, retire early, and say yes to time, travel, and God's beautiful creation. And they did it. In 2022, on their way home from a snowbird session in Florida, they stopped by Dave Ramsey's headquarters to share the news that she and her husband had officially retired at the age of 57. Last year alone, they traveled 173 days on just $10,000. They visited more than half of America's national parks and continued to live with one clear value: experiences over accumulation, freedom over excess. This conversation about money, mindset, faith, it's all possible for you too. Welcome, Cami. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. I want to get to know you a little bit more. I want our audience to get to know you a little bit more, just based on all of that introduction. You've done some amazing things with your husband, Tom. You said that you wanted experiences, not things. Was there something that caused this value to become crystal clear for you?
Okay, well, there were two things. One of them is when our girls were small, instead of having birthday parties, we would offer them experiences. So, like one time, my daughter wanted to go to the rodeo for her birthday instead of have a birthday party. So, in their whole growing up years, I think we only had two birthday parties or maybe three. So, we were doing experiences instead of parties and stuff, right? And then when we were in our 40s, we had two friends die suddenly. We had one of our best friends died at 48 of a heart attack, and another friend died in his early 50s. And I think that when that happened, it was a total mind shift change for us to we're not going to wait to live. We need to do it now because we have no idea how long we're going to live or what's going to happen tomorrow.
And when you and I had coffee and chatted about this, you mentioned something, and it was the statement that just resonated with me. And the reason why I wanted to talk to you about this, you said that your husband shared with you. He made a statement. I don't want to die at my desk, and I think about that for me because I do spend a lot of time at my desk, way too many hours, and yet I get to travel. In comparison to many folks out there who are working 40, 50, 60 hours or more, that just connected, and I wanted to share that with our audience. Is how did that make you feel when he said that to you?
Well, I could tell he was pretty intentional about not climbing the corporate ladder. He would have opportunities to be a manager or something like that. And he's like, no, it takes away too much time from my family. I want to be able to go to work my 40 hours, make enough money for us to live, and come home and spend time with my family. So that was a very intentional decision that he made early on.
And we're going to get more into the details on that. But first, I want to know, how does travel connect to your faith and your desire to see God's creation?
Well, I really think that travel can connect what you know already, what you're reading in the Bible, what you know about God, with actually seeing it. Like it's like reading a book about somebody or having a conversation with that person, you know, like it just makes it more real. And also, like when we've been out, when I see a beautiful sunset or a double rainbow or any of the things that you can see when you're out traveling, snorkeling, for instance, like when you put your face under the water, it's just amazing what you can see. And so when I travel, I'm not just sightseeing, I'm looking for the fingerprints of God all over everything. And one example I'll give you of that is, you know, we're down here in Florida snowbirding, and I have a beach that I go to here every year. And this year I went over for the first time and I started walking and I bent down to pick up my first sand dollar. And when I stood up, a military jet flew over. And those are two of my favorite things to do here. And so for me, God saw me. He saw me in that place at that exact time, at that exact moment, and gave me two things that I absolutely love. It was just like a huge hug from God. And so I look for that kind of thing when I'm out traveling.
And that started a long time ago. We were comparing notes again at coffee that you had your first airline miles card. And I don't remember which airline you said it was. In 1995, you got your first card. And we looked up mine on Delta was 1989 was my first card. You know, what did you understand early that most people just, or they're just learning now, or they're learning it, after they retire?
Yeah, so we had some friends who actually introduced us to it. We lived in Dallas at the time, and that's the American Airlines hub. And so we got an American. They were saying this was back when you wrote checks for everything, right? So they were saying we put every single thing on our credit card. I'm like, what? You don't write checks for things? They're like, no, we put everything on our credit cards because we're trying to earn miles to go on trips. And I'm like, well, that's a very fascinating idea. So then I decided I was going to do the same thing. But you know, part of it is actually spending time learning about that. Like you can't just jump in and know everything there is to know. There is definitely a learning curve for that. So that was one of the things that I did. And what I learned was that putting those everyday spending dollars on a credit card was going to earn you miles towards travel. But the second part of that is, and everyone should understand this, is you never want to keep a balance running on a credit card, right? You want to pay your credit card off every month because otherwise you're paying interest and you're not getting free travel. So those are the two things that I had to learn right off, putting everyday expenses on and making sure you pay off your card. And I think anybody who's thinking about getting into this definitely needs to start with those two things.
Exactly. There's some misconceptions sometimes that people might have about using points and miles responsibly. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, one thing I learned too was that most people that are in the points and miles sphere, they don't actually earn their points and miles from flying. Okay, so they're going to earn it. You're going to earn it from signing up for credit cards. Credit card companies give you these gigantic bonuses for meeting these minimum spends, and that's how they get you into this game, right? And then the other thing is, besides your everyday spend, think about the big things in your life that you have to pay for. So, like for us, one of the things we do is give a lot of money to charities. So, we put our charitable giving on our credit cards if they allow you to do that. Or we have to pay estimated taxes because we don't have a W 2 job. So, we put those on there. So, there are things like that where that can help you earn those minimum spends. And it's not charging things that you wouldn't normally pay for anyway, right? So I think a lot of people think they have to spend a lot of money to get a lot of points when that's not true. If you're just spending the money that you already are spending, but you're putting it on a credit card, then that's how you're going to get a lot of points. And the other thing is to remember that it's credit card points and miles are depreciating assets. What I mean by that is that they go down in value over time. So if you've been in the game at all for very long, you'll see, okay, well, you used to be able to buy, you know, a plane ticket for 25,000 miles. Well, now it might be 35,000 miles. So you don't want to hoard your points as you get them. The whole reason you're doing this is so that you can have freedom to go on trips for free. So don't hoard your points, use them to go on those trips that you want to go on, right?
Absolutely. And it was like a slap on the hand when you said that to me, when you shared that to me, because I was going, what? You can put your estimated taxes on a credit card? I've been paying estimated taxes for almost 40 years as an entrepreneur, and never have I put them on a credit card. How many points have I
Right.
missed out on over 40 years? It was like I could have had a V8. And then the other one was, don't hoard your points. I've been kind of I only use points for air miles. I never use them for hotels, but yet hotels oftentimes you can get 10 times your points. And so I've been doing this a long time myself, and I still learned some key takeaways from our conversation on how you guys have been able to do this. 173, was it
Yeah.
173 days last year for $10,000? I'm a nomad trying to live on the road 365 days a year. That's why I need to pick your brain. That's why we're here today, folks. You guys made a plan in your 50s to replace Tom's income so that he could retire early. What was the mindset shift? Because I know I went through a mindset shift myself when I gave up all my stuff and said, hey, I'm going to live from my car. I want to go experience all that I can experience before I'm too old and it doesn't work in my lifestyle anymore. But what was the mind shift? What had to happen before you could get the math to work?
I think the biggest thing that had to happen was for us to say we can actually do this. But I'll tell you how it occurred, how that happened. So we were going to this church, and I was helping to teach Dave Ramsey classes, right? And so the guy who was leading it, he was, I want to say, beyond Dave Ramsey, because once you get the whole Dave Ramsey thing down, it's like, what's next? I know how to budget my money. I know how to live within my means. I don't have credit card debt. I have my house paid off or whatever. So, what's beyond that? So now you actually have money that you're not giving for a car payment or a house payment or whatever. And this guy had tapped into real estate. So he had like all these rental houses. So he's like, you guys need to do this. And we're like, I mean, like to us, that was just like, what? Like, he's like, if you guys did this, Tom could retire early. And we're like, I mean, that was a whole thing that we had never, ever, ever, ever thought of. But we sat down, we wrote it out on a piece of paper. We figured out the numbers of how could we do this, and we could do it in 5 years. And that was in our 50s. So once we caught that vision, we stuck to it and we did it.
Yeah, we talked about I'd rather be lucky than good, maybe lucky or good at real estate investing, and how you rolled into income, like buying a property and rolling it into the next one, or duplicating and rolling it into two or three. Can you talk about that experience a little bit? How did you do that? Because I think it's still intimidating. We know lots of people who are doing fix and flips and still doing that today, but the market is much more saturated. There are many, many Airbnb, VRBO, all these other short-term rentals on top of long-term rentals. Again, how do you take the intimidation out of some of that for folks that are listening?
I think if I had it to do all over again and I was younger, but you can always start at any age, I would tell somebody buy a duplex, right? Buy a duplex. You live in one side of it, you rent out the other side, and you let that person make your house payment for you, right? Like that's a place that it could start. And then as you get more money, like let's say that ends up paying off your house or whatever, then maybe you make that whole thing a rental and you go buy another house. Like you just try to start snowballing that. And another thing that we've done that's been actually even better than owning rental houses for us is we had some money then because like I said, we didn't have a house payment and stuff, and we started lending money to flippers. And that's actually been the very best thing to grow our income is lending money to people who are flipping houses, and it's still being done. So
Find what fits your personality and follow through with that. Yeah, if it makes you nervous to do the houses or do the flipping, maybe it's being the investor or the financial backer. I love that idea. You've visited. Let's shift gears away from miles. Let's talk about like life experiences. As you're enjoying these experiences, you've visited more than half of the national parks. What has slow, intentional travel taught you about yourself and you two as a couple?
Okay, well, I don't know that we do slow travel.
Okay.
Let's say intentional travel for sure.
Okay.
So I already knew that I had the gift of administration. That's just something, excuse me, that God gave to me. I'm one of those people that's like super organized. And so when I started planning trips, I became very detailed in that. So like I have, you won't be surprised to know that I have a packing list for every kind of trip. I have like a trip template that I follow. And so it goes with, okay, well, where's your hotel and how many points did you pay for it, and where's your car rental and did you pay for that with points, and what are your flights and did you pay for those with points, and like I keep a spreadsheet on all of that because I want to know. I mean, that's how I could tell you I was gone 173 days and I saved $10,000 because I have spreadsheets for all that kind of stuff to keep track of it, right?
Yeah.
So I like to squeeze the most out of every trip. So I don't just show up and wing it. I am not a show up and wing it kind of person because I want to get out there and experience, first of all, the beauty of a place. I want to move my body. So, like, we love to hike. I want to taste any regional foods. Like, even in America, like different areas of America, they have different kinds of food, right? So, like, even here down in Florida, well, we're like along the panhandle, so you get a lot of Cajun influence and stuff. So there's foods that you don't get in your normal place when you go to different areas of the country. And so, to me, planning and dreaming about trips and then reliving them later through your photos, and like I keep a detailed itinerary of what we did. I mean, funny things we said, and just to have those memories. Like, for me, that part of the trip, which is not even the trip, is more than half the fun. And I think part of that is because nothing can go wrong when you're planning a trip, right? The weather didn't change. You didn't have a forest fire in the national park you were supposed to visit, or there wasn't a hurricane or whatever. And so, to me, a lot of that's a lot of fun doing that. Just dreaming about where we're going to go, what we're going to eat, what we're going to experience, and that kind of thing. And so also, I have learned to be a lot more flexible because I am such a planner and detailed person, that when those things happen, like at first I'd be like, oh my gosh, our trip is like completely ruined. And now I'm like, you know what? God knew that I was going to be in this place at this time and it was going to rain or there was going to be this forest fire. How can I pivot with grace, right? And not have the mindset that, oh my gosh, this trip is completely ruined.
I have been there on more than one occasion where I had to completely pivot. For a lot of folks, 173 days in 1 year sounds dreamy, but I know that for myself too, that being on the road this much, things happen. We have incidents, we have accidents. I know people who have traveled and had broken bones and had to have surgeries in other countries. And those are things that you cannot plan for. But doing the research and planning for the things that you can helps it take the stress away. Are there systems in place? You said the packing template, you said you do your research and have an extensive itinerary. Those are ones that I pulled out of that last section. But what other systems made it peaceful instead of exhausting? I need some tips on this myself because jumping from place to place, sometimes it's difficult for me to find peace. I'm moving from the panhandle here in 2 weeks and don't really know where I'm going yet and have a little bit of uneasy feeling about that. And so I can't always tap into that peaceful sense. How do you do that? How do you maintain your peace and not get exhausted?
Well, I think part of it is the pre-planning. So, like, I am here on my snowbird trip in the Panhandle, and I'm planning out my trips for the whole year because I'm not living my normal life here. And so, I think for you, that would be harder because wherever you go, you're living your normal life, right? Because that's the life you're used to. But my responsibilities that I have at home, I don't have here. So, I have more free time. So, when I have more free time, then I can make a plan. And I think for me, making a plan is what makes it peaceful. Because even if all those things on the plan don't happen, at least I have a plan. And the reason that I have gone to having a really detailed plan is because at first when we started traveling. We'd go someplace and we'd go, oh, where do you want to go out for dinner? I don't know. Where do you want to go? I don't know. Where do you want to go? And then like by, you're exhausted from doing whatever all day and you can't make a decision at 8 o'clock at night. I'm like, I can't do vacation like that. I want to at least have some options and know what's in the area. I want to know, like, have you ever gotten to a museum and realized, oh, it's not open today? It's closed on Monday because
Yes.
I didn't look it up or whatever. It's like, okay, that I want those things to be minimal in my life because to me that's stressful. It's way easier to plan and to look those things up before you go on the internet, and then you can pivot if something happens, or choose a different restaurant once you get there if you see something else. But at least you already have a plan. So to me, having a plan is having peace on trips.
Yeah, I'm a little bit in between because I plan my destinations. I know where I'm going to be at certain times a year or certain months of the year, what I'm doing there. Because I work when I'm on the road, some of these are contract jobs. And so I know what my work schedule will be. And I generally don't pre-plan until I get to that city, that town, or get checked into my Airbnb or VRBO or campsite, wherever I'm staying. Then I look what events are happening during this 2 weeks I'm here, or this 3 months that I'm here, and I start to plan that way. And I just exactly what you said. I start to make a list of, oh, I want to check out that restaurant. I see that they have this festival that's happening. Oh, here's the farmers markets, what days they're on. And I do create that list and kind of plug it into my calendar. Like, what does that look like? And I have a funny story right now. I'm leaving in 2 weeks. So I have post-it notes on the wall here at the Airbnb for one post-it note for each of the days that I have left here. And I took all the things that I have not accomplished or not done or experienced and plug them into post-it notes. So now when I wake up, I go, I have 6 things up there that I want to do in the next 12 days. And I'm looking at those 6 things and go, okay, I have some free time this afternoon. What do I want to do? Like yesterday, I went on a 20-mile bike ride. I rode 10 miles to go get my hair cut and 10 miles back and found these amazing trails called Gales Trails. And there's something that I'd wanted to do, and I've done parts of them, but there's so many here throughout the Panhandle, and it was like, okay, squeeze that one in today. So having a way to keep track of the things that you do want to do, so that you don't miss out on anything and have regrets about it. And we do sometimes end up with regrets when we're traveling. I know. One of the things that my dad used to say was, I never regret the trips I take, only the ones I don't. So I keep that in the forefront of my mind. Don't live with regrets. Make a plan, work the plan, and we all plan differently. You're much more detailed than I am for sure. I would like to get better at that. I think it would alleviate some of my stress, and bring back that peace. But I'm still learning. I want to
Right.
talk
And the
about
other thing,
speaking. You'll go ahead. Yeah, first you
oh, the
finish.
other thing I would say about the regret thing is, so have you ever gone on a trip and then gone home and you saw somebody's Instagram about the place you just went and they showed this amazing thing that you had no idea was there?
Yes.
It's like, well, I'm never probably going to go back there, so I dismiss that. So that's another thing. Like, if there is something amazing, I don't want to miss it, right? Like, I want to at least do enough research that the big things that are in these areas, I'm not going to miss, right?
Yeah, and fortunately, I do have my own travel agency now that started last year with the intention of taking people with me and maybe going back to some of those places like South Africa or Machu Picchu or other places in Peru. Cruises, where I get to see multiple places and islands. And I've connected with so many women who don't, might be widowed or divorced, or their husband doesn't want to travel. And so I'm going to try to seize those moments and get to go back. And then the way that complements me is oftentimes women are planners and they have ideas on what they want to see in those locations. So when we come together and start coordinating and planning that trip, everybody's doing research and everybody gets to pick what we're doing. Not that everybody has to go. We can all go our separate ways once we're there, but we'd have shared housing, maybe some shared transportation, and then have knowledge of everything that's available. So there's unique ways to plan. That's the lesson I'm learning this year. What would you say to someone who feels like retirement, travel, or freedom is too late for them? They may have missed out on it, or they can't figure out how to do it, whether it's their means, their budget, their travel companion, any of those things. What advice would you give them?
Well, I would say, based on our own experience of retiring at 57 and not even coming up with that plan until we were in our 50s, that it is never too late to have a dream or to set a goal and then to start working towards it. Now, maybe you don't accomplish it, but there's something about having something out there that you're working towards. And you could just start with something small. Let's say you're in credit card debt. Well, start working on paying off your credit card. Or if you want to get into the points and miles game, open a credit card and work towards that minimum spend and then plan your first trip. Like, just start small and do something. And by all means, don't let the years that you didn't plan steal the years that you still have left, right? So don't have regrets about that. Like, today's a new day. You can start afresh, right? And you can just do something that's going to change the trajectory of your life going forward.
I want to touch on one more thing in that arena, and that is how do you tell people to downsize? Because sometimes the reason we don't go is because we're drowning in our stuff. And I know you guys said paid off cars, paid off houses, uh, travel within your means, have a budget. Um, but our stuff sometimes stops us from going. I know when I let go of all of my stuff, I don't have anything to go back to. I don't have to worry about land. I don't have to worry about taking care of the house or the temperature if it's too cold or getting the lawn mowed or the driveway shoveled. So for me, that stuff piece went away and it's a little easier. But you're snowbirds, so you travel within certain parameters and you have a home and things to take care of. How does somebody maybe shift away from some of that stuff? Any tips on how we can help folks start moving in this direction of designing the lifestyle that they want?
Yeah, so I would say definitely when we come down here to Snowbird, we've gotten our car loaded up and we're on our way here. And I get here and it's like, okay, I have this list of 3 pairs of pants, 2 pairs of shorts, 4 long sleeve shirts, five. I mean, that's what I wear for 2 months. And then I go home and I'm like, why do I have all this stuff? Right? Right? Because you're down here and you have nothing. And you go back home and you have this giant closet full of clothes. And so, like, every time I go back, I'm like, we got to get rid of more stuff, get rid of more stuff, get rid of more stuff. And so, also, when we were, buying rental houses, we did downsize. That was one of our things. We downsized from the house that we had, our kids living in, and we now live in a condo community. And so, they mow your grass and they shovel your snow. And so we can be gone and we don't have to worry about any of those kinds of things. They take care of the outside of your house, they replace your roof. So I think a lot of people these days have even gotten into, they don't even want to be homeowners anymore because they don't want that responsibility. They want the freedom, right, to be able to go when they want to go. And so, the American dream of having your own home might not even be something you want to do anymore. So, like, maybe even reconsider that, renting someplace and then, like you do, move from place to place if that's what you want to do.
The last question is when you look ahead, what does a life well lived look like for you right now?
Right now. Okay, well, I will just say that I am still a work in progress. I just quit the job that I had working for a travel blogger for the last 7 years. And that was one way I got to know about all this stuff, right? And so now it's like, okay, what's next for me? Because being retired sounds stagnant. I am not going to just, get on my rocking chair and crochet, right? So, we haven't figured out what we're going to be when we grow up, right? We're at that new stage when we grow up or we grow old. So right now we're just open to reinventing what life looks like for us. And so one thing is you just never know, like that one person that introduced us to real estate, who the next person that comes into your life is that can introduce you to something that can completely change the trajectory of your life, right? Like, if I hadn't met that person, honestly, we would have never done that. We just wouldn't have. We never would have thought of that ourselves. And so I think that's what I'm open to looking for, that. Like, who is the next person or the next that's going to bring the next idea into our lives, or something that I had never even thought of before, that's going to be what we're going to do for this next season. So I guess being open to finding that person or seeing that circumstance come about, that's kind of what we're looking for.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being with me today. This was a wonderful conversation, and I know I walked away with quite a few tips myself, and I'm sure our listeners did too.
Thanks for having me, Lisa.
My pleasure. Hey, folks, I'm sure you had a takeaway or two in here. Get those debts paid off. Start to plan your life like a vacation. What do you want for your future? And it's never too early or too late, depending on where you're at in life. All of this is possible and available to you. If I can be of service or of help to you, certainly reach out to me. And same with Cami. We'll have contact information for her in the show notes. This has been A Bit of Insight with Lisa Mosbey. Come on back next week. We'd love to share more with you on travel tips, travel ideas, and how you can be successful as a world traveler. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for joining me on A Bit of Insight. If something today stirred your curiosity or lit a spark, don't let it fade. Through Insight Getaways, I curate intentional travel experiences around the world, and I also help women book unforgettable journeys they design. Whether you want to explore solo, travel with friends, or join one of my escorted group adventures, there's a place for you. You'll find details, resources, and upcoming experiences at insightgetaways.com. Be sure to share this episode with someone who needs a little courage and clarity. Let's spread the message and reach more women ready for their next chapter. Until next time, live well, travel far, and inspire others.